Welcome to Xi Jinping Briefing. The content of the briefing includes evolving narratives in German foreign policy towards Central Asia. As disasters spike, superpowers face mounting calls to forge climate deal. South Korea seeks Xi's visit to mark turning point in ties. China's economic turmoil was inevitable. Spies, espionage and lawfare, how China is scaring away the world. Evolving narratives in German foreign policy towards Central Asia. Diplomat. Germany's interest in Central Asia has grown in recent years as it aims to divest from U.S. strategic hegemony and engage in a multipolar global contest with China and Russia. Germany's foreign policy towards the region focuses on countering Russian and Chinese dominance, fostering economic development, and navigating the complexities associated with Afghanistan. Germany has become Central Asia's third-largest trading partner, and its economy interests in the region continue to grow. Germany also plays a key role in assisting Central Asia with its pressing water management challenges through the Berlin process. To implement its plans for participation in the regional process in Central Asia, Germany must address some structural issues, such as bridging the interregional gap caused by vast Russian territories and rising competition from China and Russia for markets. Central Asian transport networks are expanding in two significant directions: to the west, where Kazakhstan and the Caspian Sea are important links in Sino-European trade routes, and to the south, via land and sea connections. The EU is investing in Central Asian space stabilization to reduce its reliance on Russia for energy supplies. Germany sets the direction of Central Asia policy for the EU and plays a key role in enhancing Germany's geopolitical stability and access to food and energy. The collaboration between Germany and the Central Asian states will aid in implementing a strategy of checks and balances against China and other entities interested in filling the expanding vacuum in the region. Germany's key role is in helping Central Asia reduce its reliance on Russian and Chinese investments and trade, while also creating growth potential for Central Asian exports to China. Overall, Germany's increased interest in Central Asia is driven by its desire to diversify its global engagements, counter Russian and Chinese dominance in the region, and strengthen its economic ties. By engaging with Central Asia, Germany aims to maintain its geopolitical stability and access to vital resources while also benefiting the Central Asian states by providing economic opportunities and strategic support. As disasters spike, superpowers face mounting calls to forge climate deal. Washington Post. Leaders of some of the world's top climate institutions are ratcheting up pressure on the United States and China to forge an agreement on confronting global warming, fearing that the strained relations of these two superpowers could derail progress at international negotiations in Dubai. China ranks as the world's largest emitter of carbon dioxide, releasing roughly 12.7 billion metric tons each year, more than twice that of the United States. But because of its earlier industrialization, the U.S. bears more global responsibility for total carbon emissions, which linger in the atmosphere for decades. Americans also generate more emissions per person than their Chinese counterparts, according to a number of analysts. South Korea seeks Xi's visit to mark turning point in ties. Japan Times. South Korea is seeking to have Chinese leader Xi Jinping visit for the first time in about a decade, amid South Korea's closer ties with the U.S. China's economic turmoil was inevitable. Foreign affairs. The Chinese economic miracle is often attributed to the power of statism and the wisdom of Confucianism combined with the efficiency of the private sector. However, recent evidence suggests that economic statism is actually an existential threat to the Chinese economy. China's growth is faltering as capital outflows increase and Chinese capitalists leave the country due to concerns about safety and property security. This slowdown in growth reveals the negative impact of an increasingly interventionist government. Contrary to the belief that China's success is due to statism, the reality is that the country's economic growth began in 1978 with the launch of economic reforms that reduced the power of the state. The first phase of significant growth in the 1980s was powered by small-scale rural entrepreneurship, which was allowed to flourish as the state retreated and left room for the market economy. Chinese regions that have been most market-oriented and experienced the least state interventionism have performed the strongest economically. Classic economic theory suggests that strong property rights are necessary for economic growth, but China has never had these. However, under Deng Xiaoping, the government moved away from Maoist totalitarianism and instilled a sense of security and confidence among Chinese entrepreneurs. Unfortunately, under President Xi Jinping, Chinese capitalists are once again being marginalized, harassed, and arrested, leading to a lack of rule of law and a reluctance among entrepreneurs to invest. China's infrastructure development has been impressive, but it is not the cause of economic growth. Infrastructure projects were funded by the savings and revenues generated from years of rapid growth. China's obsession with infrastructure has led to precarious indebtedness and a lack of investment in education and health, which could have damaging effects on the economy. China's economic success is not a result of laissez-faire capitalism, but rather gradual and pragmatic liberalization, which is now being abandoned by the government at the expense of the private sector. Spies, espionage and lawfare: how China is scaring away the world. The Sydney Morning Herald. China is using its legal toolbox to tighten control over businesses and the economy, which could lead to a decoupling of China from global capital markets, according to the Australian. The country has recently enacted a number of laws in response to tensions with the US and its allies, and to tighten President Xi Jinping's grip on China's economy and society. The country's new foreign relations law, for example, asserts China's right to take any measures it deems necessary to counter actions that endanger its sovereignty, national security and development interests. The crackdown on foreign consultancies and the withholding of economic data from public release have had a chilling effect on foreign investment and business operations in China. In Q2 2016, foreign direct investment in China was 87% lower than the same period last year. Foreign businesses are also being hindered by rewards being offered for catching foreign spies and restrictions on companies that wish to list on the Hong Kong Stock Exchange. The Chinese government is re-engineering conditions for foreign businesses through its legal toolbox in an effort to render overseas regulators irrelevant and challenge US regulations. Pushed by Bangladesh PM's daughter for who role raises transparency concerns. Financial Times. The nomination of Bangladesh's Prime Minister's daughter, Sima Waisd, as a candidate for the World Health Organization's (WHO) Southeast Asia directorship has raised concerns about nepotism and transparency in the UN body's election process. The regional director is an influential position, overseeing a budget of almost $500 million for 11 countries. Critics argue that Waist's advocacy experience is not enough to qualify her for the role and that her nomination highlights the politicization of the health sector in Bangladesh. The WHO has not commented on the situation. Thank you for tuning in. The content above showcases the latest briefing reports and analytical synopses, thoughtfully curated by the 6Do team. These insights stem from a wide array of reputable media outlets, think tanks, government sources, and specialized experts worldwide. We encourage you to explore these sources for a comprehensive perspective. Keep in mind that while the content may not always align with the official standpoint of 6Do Brief, it's not meant to be taken as absolute directives for decision-making. Comprising seasoned media professionals, learned scholars, and accomplished scientists, the 6Do team embodies a trailblazing, fully independent media entity. To customize 6Do Brief to meet your professional needs, you have the option to subscribe to a diverse array of briefings on our website, 6dobrief.com. Regardless of your location, you can conveniently receive 6Do Brief via email. In today's news, we see Germany increasing its interest in Central Asia, South Korea seeking a visit from Chinese leader Xi Jinping, calls for a climate deal between the US and China, concerns over China's economic turmoil, China's use of legal measures to tighten control, and concerns over the nomination process at the World Health Organization. It seems like everyone wants a piece of Central Asia these days. Germany is looking to diversify its global engagements and counter Russian and Chinese dominance in the region. South Korea wants closer ties with China, while also cozying up to the US. And let's not forget about China itself, which is always looking to expand its influence. It's like a game of musical chairs, with everyone scrambling to secure their seat in Central Asia. Speaking of China, there are growing concerns over its economic turmoil. Some argue that China's economic success is not due to statism, but rather to gradual liberalization. However, recent evidence suggests that an increasingly interventionist government is actually hurting the Chinese economy. Capital outflows are increasing, and Chinese capitalists are leaving the country due to concerns about safety and property security. It seems that China's economic miracle may be losing its magic. But China isn't just facing economic challenges. It's also scaring away the world with its use of legal measures to tighten control. China has enacted a number of laws to counter actions that it deems as threatening its sovereignty and national security. This crackdown on foreign businesses and the withholding of economic data have had a chilling effect on foreign investment in China. The Chinese government is re-engineering conditions for foreign businesses, challenging US regulations and rendering overseas regulators irrelevant. It's like China is saying, "You want to do business here? Play by our rules." And speaking of rules, the nomination process at the World Health Organization is raising concerns over nepotism and transparency. Bangladesh's Prime Minister's daughter is a candidate for the WHO's Southeast Asia directorship, and critics argue that her nomination highlights the politicization of the health sector in Bangladesh. It's a reminder that even international organizations are not immune to political influence. So, what do you think about these evolving narratives? Is Germany's interest in Central Asia a smart move or just another game of geopolitics? Is China's economic turmoil a sign of trouble or an opportunity for change? And what about the World Health Organization? Should the nomination process be more transparent and free from political influence? I'd love to hear your thoughts and questions. What do you think?